So at the time, in 1972, I went to Singapore. And my objective was to sit down with Lee Kuan Yew and talk about a country that was about to be built on human capital, attracting the best and brightest from around the world to come, number one. And number two, to provide stability, he had to educate his own population so they wouldn't be second-class citizens to expats. To me, in many ways, his ideas for a country reflected in some ways of your ideas for a company. Am I right? Am I wrong?
There are a lot of similarities in that the man was a very strong man, and he was in a position, as he describes, if you don't know, Lee Kuan Yew is a remarkable man because he took basically a mosquito-infested backwater in which he's in the middle of the heroin drug trade triangle, and he created a vision and built out that vision in which it would be the place in Asia that companies wanted to be in, that families could be raised in from people from around the world. And in order to do that, he had to have what I would vision in which there was a firmness of the type of behavior that was necessary so that there was a strictness in terms of a definition of what a good citizen was. And he built out that good citizenship. And at the same time, he did that in a way which respected all the different cultures, so and the differences in people. So people from all over Asia could be educated and continue to speak their language and be educated in their language as well as English. And so I respect his diversity. I respect his idea meritocratic way among those decision makers. And I respect the notion of good citizenship at the same time as there's, that sort of discipline at the same time as that there's this egalitarian way of operating to bring people up. So, yeah, to be compared with Lee Kuan Yew is a tremendous honor because to me, he's been a hero I think he's probably the greatest leader of the last, 50 or 100 years. He's certainly one of them. And so I guess the fact that I admire him and I got to know him. I've had him, dinner in my house and talking about such things, which was a great honor, not talking about, but gathering information from him in terms of his perspective. And I would say we have a lot of common about values. Yes, there's a lot of common about values and how to then run an organization that way.
So when I look at Singapore and Lee Kuan Yew, as we've discussed with a number of you over the years, it was mirroring what I was focused on in finance. We would finance and focused on, can we provide capital, people with ability, and let them create jobs, etc. So if you go back and look at, as we've looked at many times, Singapore versus Jamaica, both of them were separating from the UK at the same time. They both had the same GDP in 1960. There was no difference. Lee Kuan Yew actually went to Jamaica to talk to the leader to discuss what his strategy was. The strategy of Jamaica was tourism and natural resources. The strategy of Singapore was human capital, and this essentially was our concept and idea. Gary Becker eventually won a Nobel Prize for this in 1992. And so if you look at them today, no one would compare today Jamaica and Singapore. And so this is an example how it worked for a country, but Ray's going to give us a little more ideas of how it worked for a company called Bridgewater and this meritocracy that was created. But based on the ability of individuals, which was the world's largest.
Just to be clear, the person that criticized you, he still had his job?
All the time. I would
Okay.
I give more negative feedback for not being criticized, right? But it's logical, but it's emotionally difficult for people. To me, it's very unusual that people don't operate that way. In other words, what is wrong with the radical truthfulness? Do you want to keep people having it bottled up inside them? All of that logically doesn't make sense.
You're 70 years old. To make sure that Bridgewater survives you put in place a partnership model to give employees more stake in the company. How is that coming along? And what are you doing about succession planning?
Wonderful, wonderful. Yes, you're right. To start something out of a two-bedroom apartment and to have the whole arc and be an owner and then to transition it well is a real journey. Fortune said we're the 5th most important company in the United States. Not just the biggest hedge fund, but the 5th most important company in the United States. That's something. So to transition well is really a beautiful thing. And I didn't really know how to do it. I started doing it, and then we're in this beautiful situation that I've transitioned the leadership to. I'm now an employee as a investment officer, and I'm a chairman. That's my
But as the
existing role.
founder, are you able to completely let go?
Oh yes, because it's natural. Okay, maybe it's not natural for all people, but it's natural for me.
You had no problems.
It's like your kids. Let's say you have a 40-year-old child, they're not a child, but a 40-year-old son or daughter. Okay, what is the greatest joy that you can have? To have them successful without you, to have them successful without you, right? Because that's evolution. Okay, I'm 70. I'm going to be different at 80. Who knows? You know, life expectancy is like 80. So you have an arc. There's a life arc. And to be in that stage of the arc, it's a joy to see others successful without me.
And finally, Ray, what would you want to be remembered for?
I don't really care about being remembered. I don't care about being remembered. I care about just in my very small way, contributing to a little bit of evolution. I mean, let's put things in perspective. I'm a tiny, tiny part. You know, we're all a little bit like ants carrying crumbs. You know, we're in the greater scope of things. So I would say it's as important for me to direct other people to other people, like to direct them to Lee Kuan Yew and to direct them to other wise people, so that they can look for principles and if there's a memory, but I don't need to have that kind of memory, but it would be to really help others to be the most, so contribute to evolution in a small way. And it's not like that at all. It's more like they're curious.
Leaders. There was no leader you admired more than the late Singapore leader, Lee Kuan Yew. Tell about the dinner that you had at your house.
Well, it was with him, and I had Paul Volcker, who Federal Reserve Chairman, and then I had Bob Rubin, who was the Treasury Secretary, and so we were around the table, and we went around and asked him what, you know, who were the best leaders, who were the worst leaders, what was the complexion of the existing leaders, you know, and so we got all of his thoughts. And very interesting man, because Singapore's, you know, this little city that is kind of a mosquito-infested swamp that had nothing particularly special, other than he created a culture and a way of operating there that made Singapore what it is today. So that was what the dinner explored.
What was his reasoning for saying Vladimir Putin was one of the best leaders worldwide?
He said that you have to evaluate a leader within the context of his circumstances. And so if you go into Putin and you know the situation when he took over the Soviet Union, which was Russia at the time, because the Soviet Union had fallen apart, and there's corruption, and there's anarchy, literal anarchy, and they're broke. And Boris Yeltsin, who preceded him, was an alcoholic, and there was no government, and there was no bureaucracy. And he described how he came in, and he had to deal with all of that to create order. And he spoke about the accomplishments to stabilize it, to raise the incomes, to establish the institutions that they didn't have before, those kinds of things.
What are the situations in which you've met with Putin, and what did the two of you talk about?
Well, there were two conversations about economics, about how Russia, timeless and universal rules of how economies work, and in particular, the potential of Russia to develop capital markets and be more efficient in developing the economy. Some economics and markets.